Hi, Tony. Can you hear us?
Yep, I
Yep,
can.
you're on.
Just been having some internet issues. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep, yep. It's just, yeah, the internet isn't. Um, can't see my mouse on my
You
screen.
can't see your mouse. Okay, well, I'll
The,
introduce you. So today,
the cursor.
while Tony is finding his mouse, he needs a mouse trap. Um, Tony's today going to talk about the quantum financial system, of which I know absolutely nothing. So I think we're all ears here to find out what it's all about. So you ready, Tony, to present the quantum financial system?
Not quite.
Not
Just
quite.
bear with me for a second, please.
Okay.
Okay,
And in
can you see my screen?
put it on slide share.
Yeah. Yeah, the slideshow can be a pain because I can't see, I
Okay.
can't find my cursor. So I'm
Okay.
just going to do it
Yeah,
this
just
way.
do it this way then. That's fine.
Yeah. So there's a lot of chatter about the QFS, also known as the quantum financial system. I thought that I would yeah present possibilities as to what it could be. I would never profess to say I know what it is because I don't, but there's certainly lots of clues um, as to aspects of it. And so I think we have to sort of ask a lot of questions, and we can look at different clues that we get, and see if we can piece it together. So what is the QFS? How does it relate to blockchain? Web3. Web3 is like the new blockchain based internet. Decentralization, crypto, and Nasara Jasara as well. I thought I would throw that in, and the global currency reset, also known as the GCR. So yeah, so these all these different pieces of the puzzle, I think they all have relevance. Um, So, firstly, I'm going to do a quick overview of the importance of quantum physics or quantum mechanics, which basically says everything is energy and all energy is connected via a quantum field. Um, this is how when we tap into the source of energy, when we tap into um, the fabric, if you like, of the universe. This is when we get, we have instantaneous and exponential results for our endeavors. And most people are operating at the physical level only, and they're trying to create purely from a physical state, and that's going to create very poor results, incremental results at best. Um, so we have to have a paradigm shift. We have to start installing um, energy as our prime benchmark or reference point, if you like, for our life. Um, so what is the QFS, or what could be the QFS? There's a lot of There's a lot of things flying around about it. Um, it could be a generic term for a new financial system, and that is sort of where I feel it is a generic term. It doesn't. I don't think it necessarily applies to one specific solid thing, like a solid. When I say solid, I mean like a system that's fixed um, and set in stone. Um, I think it's a combination of things, um, and that being the blockchain and crypto based system, which is based on decentralization. I think that is definitely a component of the QFS. Then you've got straight out quantum computing, and some people see it as just the rollout of quantum computers, which is an interesting thing. I actually think quantum computing is coming. They're already here, and I will go into each of these points in a little bit more detail as I go along. Um, it's I see it as a genuine competitor to the existing centralized system. I think that is, by and large, I think that's correct, that the QFS is an alternative system to what we have now and to what is planned by the WEF and the IMF and the BIS. Um, I see it as a people's based system that is decentralized. Um, it could be another name for Jasara Nasara and the RV, which is the currency reset. I think again there's maybe components of the true Nasara Jasara could be in there as well. There's a lot of FUD around these terms, but there is some facts involved, and we can have a look at that as well. Or, as I've got here, is it simply a psyop? A psyop is like it's like a it's like a falsity that is presented to us as a truth. Um, it's like a mind implant or a type of like a giant carrot to get people all excited about it, and then it just turns out to be a trap. And I don't think it is a psyop, but I think that there are certainly there's a lot of infiltration around it in it, and there are aspects of the QFS that are very much not true. Um, so to like analyze this, I think it's important that we look at some of the other big systems in our world, because the financial system is heavily connected to the political system and very much the geopolitical system. So, what I believe we are witnessing now is a battle between the centralized controllers, the incumbents, if you like, pushing their Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Now, the Fourth Industrial Revolution is not something I'm going to be talking about today, but there are aspects of it that we will be touching upon. Um, However, versus the another scenario is emerging where the people are creating a decentralized system where we get to be our own banker, where we get to send peer-to-peer transactions with no banks in between, and where we get to have real privacy with appropriate transparency. So our transactions between us should be completely private, but there needs to be transparency as to what's happening in the wider network. Um, and this will expose the central planners, because they're usually the ones that are causing most of the problem. They say that they're creating regulations to protect the people. I don't believe so. I believe they create regulations to protect themselves, and they throw us a few crumbs to make out like they're protecting us. When we don't know how good life could be on the other side, we think that what we've got is the best we can get, and this is how secrecy and conspiracy kind of prevents us from seeing what true potential we've got in our systems. So here's some central facts to kind of give a bit of an overview of where we're at with the what's been planned for us. Is The retail banks are caught in the middle. That meaning that the CBDC, which is a central bank planned central bank digital currency, direct to the people. So that's leaving the retail banks, our regular, high street banks, are caught in a bit of no man's land. So that there's an interesting uh, thing happening there. I do think the banks will get heavily involved in the crypto, in the sense of holding our crypto on our behalf, or that's what they're going to offer us, as well as they're going to be clipping the ticket somehow. We just don't know quite how yet. So a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, is proposed to be linked to a digital ID for a social credit type score system. That is definitely on the cards. It's in their own documents. If you look at the Club of Rome and the WEF, and listen to what they say, as I have read a lot and heard a lot, they actually admitting that that is the case, and that they love China's model and they're emulating China. Um, all transactions plan to be linked to a zero carbon emission world, and we will have carbon credits. So what they're effectively doing is they're actually moving industry in this green economy, so-called green economy, which is just another way of the centralized, because they need to increase growth. Growth is flatlined or bottomed right out. So this is just another way to create a whole new industry that really it really doesn't, to the lengths that they're going, it isn't actually needed, because for, well, lots of reasons. I won't go into that, but they are trying to move their entire all the big companies have to move into this ESG world, which stands for environmental social governance. um, and it's all connected to the United Nations Agenda 2030, and there's a lot of stuff out there about it. And effectively, this is going to penalise us if we buy stuff that they don't deem they deem to be unnecessary or too carbon rich. Then they can cut us off from this from the CBDC. AI, artificial intelligence, is ready to be implemented on a mass scale. There's a good side to AI and there's a bad side to AI, just like everything else that's created in the world. And so we need to explore how the AI is going to be used, and how is it going to be implemented. And they are planning to. It was already someone like I heard was about 800,000 people have already had a chip inserted in their skin, and I know people are doing trials with artificial intelligence and their brain, and downloading their contents of their brain into a computer. So this is their grand vision, that we're all going to be kind of AI controlled, and it's very, very dystopian. I totally believe, by the way, that it won't happen. I just think that it's doomed to fail. SDRs are likely to be used. SDR is a IMF created type currency that stands for special drawing rights, and it looks like they may well use these as well as or instead of a CBDC. It's going to be digitized. They've tried to use these before and they didn't work, um, but they haven't given up, and I think they're looking at putting them onto a blockchain. So they special drawing rights um, are being used to some degree as a institution to institution or government to government kind of money. Um, and the current system we have now is basically over. It is almost all over. The only thing that's holding it up is money printing, and the fact that also these central bankers are connected to or own pretty much all the main infrastructure in the world. So they are the ones who can then control the demolition, if you like. And it is also um, it's dissolving because of it on its own accord as well. But they are contributing. They are contributing to killing their own system in order to move us into this new zero carbon digital kind of system that they have dreamed up, and it's basically um, pretty much ready to go, from what I understand. So the rise of the new technology. This is a very interesting point that we need to take note, that the rise of the new technology is largely not in the hands of the old guard, of these central bankers and their central guardians, if you like. They certainly in the crypto world, a lot of the new money that has been made and some of these other associated technologies are coming from a new breed, a new type of elite, if you like, with a lot of money, and they have powerful backing, and they are now, I believe, they are emerging onto the scene. And this new technology, also known as fintech, so it stands for financial technology, is spearheaded by this group of people. Um, Many of the top global payment fintech companies are looking to partner with the banks. So I find that that to a lot of people freaks them out. They get very scared that or they're partnering with the enemy, if you like. Um, I actually look at it in a different way. There's no way you could make any meaningful um, um, inroads into this system that we've got now by trying to attack it or attack the people in it from the outside, just by like throwing stones, right? Basically, that's about as much as you could do. You might hit someone and it might give them a bruise, but they'll just shake it off because they hold all the cards when it comes to assets, money, and all the infrastructure, all the corporates, all the monopolies that they have. Um, you know, if you attack them on their turf, it's doomed to fail. And so I think that this is potentially a sting type operation where the good guys are getting in alongside these bankers. They're winning their favor. They have a technology that they absolutely need. 100% they need it. Um, and I believe that these guys know that. And once the banks or the central banks in this case, and probably many of the top banks come on board with this type of technology. When I'm talking crypto, decentralized finance, blockchain. Once they get in on board, well, the people that hold the power are the technology holders. Um, so this incumbent system that we have now, they are investing in this technology like mad. They are investing hugely in even in Bitcoin and Ethereum heavily, in blockchain in general. I mean, they need it to move their system onto it. Um, but that doesn't mean they control it like they are used to, because they are coming in by and large as investors in a lot of these tokens and into a lot of these projects. Yes, they are controlling some of them, like with JP Morgan and Consensus Group are controlling Ethereum, and they are controlling Bitcoin to an extent through the Blockchain Association, and have infiltrated these associations. They've created companies that they then put around these technologies, and then they are also controlling it through pumping and dumping, pumping a lot of money in on the token and then pulling the rug out when they see fit. So, but that is there is definitely a leveling of the playing field going on, and this is why we're seeing partly why we're seeing so much chaos in the world. The chaos is not just directed at us. The chaos has been caused because two parties at the top are basically fighting and vying for to be the top dog in this new emerging world. So um, this technology called DLT, distributed ledger technology, is also being used as the rails to run the CBDC. It's not actually producing the CBDC, but it's giving them the infrastructure, the underlying infrastructure, so that a CBDC can be created. So that there's an important distinction there. And distributed ledger technology is created by the XRP people, XLM, which is Stellar, and the other two main ones anyway. Stable coins are also a major threat to the CBDC. So we've just seen a major collapse in the market, and Terra Luna basically has lost its peg. The peg to the stable coin has lost its peg, which means that basically they attacked it by they bought up a lot of it and then they dumped it on the market at a huge amount, and basically that's depegged the stable coin. So the stable coin has now become very unstable, and the Terra crypto, which is all about decentralized finance, has also plummeted something like 96%. This is the cabal firing their first major attack at a project that they abhor, they hate Terra Luna. It's offshore, out of the reach of the American cabal in Korea and in South Korea. And there had been a bit of a stoush between them and the SEC. The SEC wanted them to get regulated, and they told them to basically F off. And so now they've gone and attacked them. So This, I think, is the war. This is the war starting to emerge into full view. Exchanges are also being groomed for regulation. So, with stable coins and exchanges, if they can regulate those, that's how they, and with a CBDC, that's how they see they're going to be able to control the decentralized finance, because they are going to ensure that any project, to get into the project, you're going to have to buy the crypto, which means you're going to have to give your KYC, you have to going to give your ID, um, which in of itself is fine, except if all of that data goes to the central controllers, that is really not good for us. We want decentralized regulation. We want blockchain enabled encrypted ID so that we can prove who we are, but it's not held by the central bankers. That is a recipe for disaster. So they're going to act as gatekeepers basically, and they're going to try and police the entry points and the exit points, which is what stable coins and exchanges are. So it's going to be a bit of a battle. Um, so QFS and fintech is actually a merging of several prime innovations. And when on standalone on with these types of creations, these innovations on their own, they're quite very powerful. They can make a big impact on the world. But when you actually merge them all together
Okay, Hodo.
into a greater whole, then that's going to be paradigm shifting. Uh, and again, this could be a paradigm shift in a very upward, positive, humanitarian way, or it could be absolute enslavement of the ultimate degree. Um, so it's us people that make the difference. It's us, especially those who are waking up to what's happening. We are the ones who are going to make sure that those chips fall on the right side of the ledger. So we've got artificial intelligence. There's, as I say, there's artificial intelligence right across the extremes, from automating our delivery of money, smart contracts that are created in order to distribute funds, and create the things like the DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organizations. There's AI involved in the blockchain, which is totally benign. And as I say, it's basically around automation, the automated bots, that sort of thing, um, as opposed to the actual bots that we get them all the time when they say, hello, how are you? Can you tell me about this and that? And acting like they're a person wanting to be your friend. They are not human, by the way. And if you get any of those messages, just block them. So, and then we've got Neuralink and we've got artificial intelligence where they want to, you know, basically they want to take our biological reference point away and turn us into some kind of cyborg, kind of walking biological cyborg. Um, and then we've got robotics, which is obviously the full manifestation of artificial intelligence as a standalone, thing. You've got VR and AR, virtual reality and augmented reality, which is going to be the basis of the metaverse. So we could literally conduct business in another kind of reality. Um, and play, gamble, even buy and sell land. It's all very artificially based. Then we've got quantum physics, with quantum computing. So quantum physics is very important in all this. like I sort of touched on at the beginning, we need to understand, if we understand quantum physics, we understand energy. And if we understand energy, then we can understand how we can best operate within this world. And quantum physics is obviously underpinning quantum computing, which, is, they are here. They are here. Quantum computers are here. I have got a slide on that, so I'm going to go into that shortly. Blockchain and crypto digital payment technology. This blockchain is huge. Blockchain is what creates crypto and enables digital payments and digital assets as well. As opposed to cryptocurrencies, I'm now using the term digital asset as a better term to describe what we're actually dealing with in crypto. Um, the Internet of Things. So this is going to be hooking up all our hardware and appliances onto the internet. This is what they want. This is why they need 5G. This is why they need super fast internet, so that they can then AI will run all this, and it will take a lot of power, a lot of internet power, computing power. That's why they need the 5G as well. So so again, it could be okay and benign, but it could be very dystopian as well. Um, different types of energy, e.g., proof of work, which is what Bitcoin and Ethereum run on, use huge amounts of electricity and energy, massive amounts. And so we've got to we I'm not a big fan of this whole this zero carbon thing, but I do also believe we should look to reducing fossil fuel consumption as well. I mean, I think that there's a good aspect to that, and you know. But imagine if we had free energy, or imagine, the controllers are saying, yeah, well, we can create solar and wind power and all that. That's all well and good, but they need huge amounts of energy to dig up the minerals that they need to create those, to create that actual infrastructure. To create solar, you need a lot of um, rare earth minerals. For an electric battery, you need huge amounts of lithium and cobalt and all this, which is just totally defeating the purpose. But if we could just leapfrog into a quantum type energy system, I think that would be amazing for the world, and that could run all these other technologies that we could use in a really, really good way. Also, one thing I've missed out here, but I should put in or mention now, is the satellite technology as well. Low orbit satellites that are going up there. This is a key part of how the QFS is supposedly going to run. They're actually putting blockchain nodes on these satellites, apparently. And so that is another component which really would need this quantum system to run. It will need something like that. It won't be running through wires. So satellite technology is really advanced a lot, because they can now, bring the rockets back and just reuse them many times over, and they can take up a huge amount of satellites in one launch. So there's many of them up there now, and they're continually adding more and more all the time. And so all of this type of technology is merging with finance, but it's also merging in a new type of media, transportation, and actually everything in life. Life is about, in the next 10 years, or in 10 years' time, our life will look so different to what it does now. We've got to be prepared for the 10 years of the most massivest change that we have probably witnessed on this earth for centuries, centuries and centuries, and maybe even ever. So we can't underestimate how important technology is now becoming in our lives. So it must be handled right, and it must be in the right hands. It absolutely must be done in a way where it's sort of at arm's length from our life. If it's making our life better through automation and through some convenience and handling greater load of use, and that's all great. But when it becomes invading in our privacy and it's been invading into our homes and our personal life, it's not going to be good. And I truly believe that sanity will prevail. So then when we look at the crypto side of this QFS, crypto is a digital assets, blockchain, decentralized finance. Just this area alone is groundbreaking and paradigm shifting type technology that has the absolute potential to bring a lot of a wealth and abundance to ultimately to the whole of humanity. This is like not about a few select people getting rich. This is about redistributing all the wealth in the world. I mean all the wealth into the hands of all the people. That's ultimately the goal that we need to have in mind. And we can work back from there. So they've got this new messaging system called ISO 20022. It's a payment messaging system between the banks. So it's like the rails that will run, it's like the rules, if you like, and the rails of how these tokens that subscribe to this messaging system will work. And we know that's XRP, it's XLM, it's XDC, Quant, also IOTA, and a couple of others. I forget, but these are the main ones. These four, and all these four are new kids on the block when it comes to technology. These have been created by super smart people that I believe, by and large, are outside the current system, but they are obviously very connected to them as well through deals, partnerships, and that sort of thing. But these are guys, when you combine them all together, and they are all working together, they're not working individually, they're working as a group, they could definitely be the basis of some kind of quantum financial system. Absolutely, and to me, without a doubt. But just how that shows up and how it actually works for us, we've yet to see. But I believe these are the guys that are leading the pack for replacing the US dollar, or at least partially replacing, along with, I believe we'll see the end of one global reserve currency, and we could see these type of currencies become jointly reserve currencies, with potentially with connection to a new kind of cash as well. So I will go into that as well a little bit later. So these tokens are basically, what they're doing is they're basically dissolving the current system and putting everything that's currently done into a digitized format. So all the different aspects of the system will become tokenized and digitized. And it means a lot of efficiency. It means a lot less fees. It means that it's more distributed wealth. It means that people like us can buy into it on the ground floor, which normally that would never happen. That never happened with Amazon or Facebook or any of the super big companies that we have now. We were not invited to that party. Whereas now we can get in on board. And you'll see that they have a company, or they have what they call a foundation that sits behind the actual currency. So Ripple is the company that owns XRP as an asset. Stellar Foundation owns the XLM crypto. Xinfin owns the XDC crypto, and the Quant Foundation owns Quant. And so the messaging system up here, the ISO 20022, is with these companies. It's not actually with the crypto itself. So these companies are subscribed to this, and then the currency is then what then floats. Then it's the actual currency that then works in conjunct with this new standard. So then this comes to like, what else could we expect with this crypto area? Well, Web3. In other words, it's the third major iteration or evolution of the internet, which is what it was designed to do, is to be the new internet where we people get to be our own bankers and we own shares in aspects of this new infrastructure. So when you can own shares in Ripple, you can buy shares on Ripple through a company called Link2, or you can even by owning the crypto that it's produced. That is going to give you a shareholding in this new type of blockchain-based internet. So that is huge. I mean, that is like, imagine if you owned a piece of Amazon now, or if you owned a piece of the railways, say, or any underlying infrastructure that's commonly used. If you had a shareholding in that, you have a massively valuable share. That's for sure. And so this is what we are getting, is we're not just buying a currency that's a cryptocurrency. We're buying a digital asset. And that I cannot overstate how important that is in that distinction. So it means that it's going to grow as an asset, and it's also something that can be used globally with almost zero fees, tiny fraction of a fee, super fast, and it's based on a distributed ledger. So it's opening up huge possibilities for everybody. It's leveling the playing field of the pyramid. Basically, it's starting to bring the top of the pyramid down to the ground. That's what it's doing. So yeah, as I said before, crypto is a currency and a digital asset. The Lobster Wallet, there's a wallet out there called Lobster, which was created by the Stellar Foundation, and they've got this group called the Quantum Stellar Initiative, and they're promoting Stellar and Ripple or XRP and XLM and these other tokens as the actual QFS. So I don't think that that's totally literally true, but I think there probably is definitely a reference to it there. And also the Lobster Wallet is apparently a potential new home where you can buy stock of new companies that apparently are going to be created out of the shell of the existing companies. So what they're saying is some of these existing companies have been involved in major crimes against humanity, and there is a executive order that Donald Trump put out about any person or company that's involved in any basic crimes against humanity or any major crimes that he listed, then they could have all their assets stripped and they could be basically handed over to the people. And that sounds very far-fetched, and it might not happen, but I think eventually the wealth of these super corporations will end up at least partially in our hands, and if not totally, after in 50 or 100 years, I believe that all the main assets of the world will be globally owned, co-owned as one giant cooperative. Um, that's the vision of Everich, is a new economic evolution of the world as the world becomes like a co-op, and all the main all assets, all financial assets come from or are backed by natural resources, absolute natural resources. The earth itself, water, the earth, the minerals that are in the earth, of which we know gold and silver. This is why gold and silver has held its value for 5,000 years, because it's a tangible asset that is worth way more than it's just, than what you'd say is its baseline value. It's got an intrinsic value. And just as food and water is an intrinsic value to us, it's the same with these other earth assets. You cannot replace the elements. You cannot replace the minerals. They are where our inherent wealth comes from as a species, because without those elements, we wouldn't even exist. So when we look at the system coming down, really what it is it's just a Ponzi scheme that is collapsing down, so that everything will become, all financial assets eventually will be on a par with um, the real assets that underpin it. Like, for instance, gold. If you back the currency by gold, you cannot print any more of that currency than what the amount of gold that you're holding. But if we opened it up even more and we all co-owned all these all the key infrastructure, all the earth, became we all became custodians of the earth, then we can all participate in a very wealthy world without any single party controlling it. So then we talk about this GCR, the Global Currency Reset, and Nasara Jasara. I think there is a QFS relevance to this, but I'm not sure. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I want to speak into it because it's out there, and is it a real thing? Well, yes. Nasara, it started off as Nasara by the USA farmers in the 1970s, when they were rebelling against globalization. They were rebelling against, that's when the government started telling farmers what they can grow and what they shouldn't grow. And they started, creating this globalized price. Like the same with here in New Zealand. Our dairy is sold on the global commodity market. But us New Zealanders, we have to pay the price. We pay expensive prices for our dairy and our meat and that, because it's priced in a global commodity, not even though it costs us a lot less to produce. They have to sell it to us at the global price. And essentially, the farmers were rebelling against, they were losing profits. They were going broke back then. And that was because, the government were putting these crazy regulations and controls on them. And so they came together and created NASARA, which stands for, I believe it's National Economic and Stability Reform Act, or something along those lines. And it actually did pass. It did go through Congress in the states, and they made a NASARA bill, but it never got enacted. And it was going to be announced and enacted on September 2001. And we know what happened on that day. And it was going to be announced, I believe, from either from one of the Twin Towers. I believe there was an office there that they had, but also Building 7 held all the gold that they were going to use to reinstate the currency back to gold. And because Building 7 came down, was it, a couple of hours after the so-called planes hit the buildings, and then they basically cordoned it off and trucked all the gold out and stole it. So that's something that you might want to do your own due diligence on, but I've seen enough to convince myself. So now to this day, still that NASARA bill has never been implemented. But so we'll see. So does crypto render the GCR null and void? Well, it may do. Why would we want to have all these global different currencies if paper currencies if there's going to be a digital global currency? So I don't know how that's going to happen. They talk about the Zim and the Dong and the Dinar, and they're all going to be apparently made one for one to the US dollar or to whatever the global currency is, the global reserve currency. But if the US dollar is going down, well, that's not a great strategy. And if digital currencies are coming up, well, maybe, and it's a global currency, well, you're not going to need individual regional currencies. So I have no idea how that's going to work. But they've been saying the GCR is going to be implemented any day. I've heard it for years, or at least the last couple of years. And it's never, they say, yeah, it's definitely happening next week on this date. And it never does. So I actually think a lot of that is actually FUD. And this area has been heavily infiltrated with misinformation and disinformation. So I take a lot of this stuff with a big grain of salt. So what about the Forex market? How will that be affected? Well, that's a huge question, because the Forex market, which by the way stands for foreign exchange, that is the biggest by far trading market in the financial system today. It sometimes handles between $1 and $3 to $4 trillion a day in transactions. So that is massive. So I think somehow it's going to be digitized and traded. They're still going to find a way to trade the digital currencies. Maybe they'll trade the CBDCs. I don't know. That's a huge question, because if cash is going to become trash and they're getting destroyed, then there's really going to be no individual foreign currencies to trade with. So that is a huge question mark around that. So you can see the type of chaos that we can be in for when big and very entrenched trading areas like this, when they get disrupted and upset, there's going to be a lot of chaos. When you're dealing with that kind of money and these guys are making their money out of that system. They do not want to let it go. So, there's going to be big changes coming afoot in just in that area alone. How could it interact with blockchain? That as far as the GCR and Nasara, not sure, but I definitely think blockchain is going to have a big part to play in that. Gold and silver backed currencies, whether they issue, there's been talk of a new type of fiat money linked to a digital currency backed by gold, or just cryptocurrencies backed by gold, or new kinds of government issued money that literally get backed. So there's definitely something happening with gold and silver, and I always think gold and silver are a great diversification too for your portfolio. There's also in America, they've been talking about a new kind of American note coming out, a new kind of cash, which is actually got a GPS kind of tracking system in it, so it can't be manipulated. And bear in mind, the biggest money launderers are the actual central banks, so that would be a very good thing to have. They do a lot of the, in my opinion, they do a lot of the drug dealing, and they do a lot of the other nefarious stuff. So, this is what they're saying: issuing the cash with a serial number that can literally be tracked on the blockchain. That's talk of it. So that could have an aspect to this new QFS. And what about the role of the CBDC? How will that work? Universal basic income. Will it even work at all? I mean, will the CBDC actually work? I think that it will probably come out, but I don't know whether it's going to be successful. We'll see. And then they talk about debt reduction or debt elimination. Don't know. I really don't know. I know that some people apparently are having their debts mysteriously wiped. Maybe that's the cabal doing it just to make people think that it's actually really a thing. Maybe they are going to wipe all the debt, but it needs to be across the board, no strings attached. And I think they will probably try and put strings attached. And they say, "Oh yeah, we'll wipe out your debt, and then you have to take the CBDC and basically sign here on the dotted line into another binding contract, which will further just take us right back to square one." So I just be very interested to see. Something has to happen with the debt. I mean, the debt is so out of control. It's so huge now. Something like $250 of debt in the world. It is just ridiculous. And so, how it's going to be dealt with, I don't know. So this whole area, like I said, is heavily infiltrated with untruths. So don't take everything for gospel. Don't believe what I'm saying either. I'm just trying to present it as more questions really than answers. Really, just trying to look at it from a big picture and look at possibilities. So then, if we look at quantum computers, I think that this is going to be the how the financial system of the future will run. If in fact there is still money in 20 or 50 years, maybe we might not need it. And if everything gets given back to the people, well, really, there's the idea of having money is actually moot. And so I think, but quantum computers are definitely a thing, and they're definitely coming. Just not sure how they will fit in with everything we're talking about. IBM have a quantum computer. The Chinese CCP, Communist Party, they are very advanced in a quantum computer. And I believe Amazon and Google are both working on this race to create these quantum computers. And I think it is a race because whoever gets to crack the quantum computing and implement it, that definitely, if it fell into central hands, that is definitely going to be not a good scenario. So, yeah, we need conscious people in this world. Do they hold the key to the future of finance in our lives? Well, maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Quantum computers do not work on a 1 or 0. It does. In other words, it's it's either ones and zeros when you're creating code. But what it can do is it calculates possibilities based on both 1 and 0 being present at the same time. And that's what eliminates this either or duality. And we need to start thinking like this. We got to realize that we've got like a mini quantum computer between our ears, and we are connected to this quantum field, and duality and polarization is what's killing our world right now with this either or mentality, this left or right mentality. It's got to go. So we've got to start holding both poles, if you like, both dualities in our mind together, and coming up with this. That's the third principle. That's the third principle, the Trinity, where we don't get skewered by this or that, one or the other. We have to choose one or the other. It's like choosing something bad and something evil. We need to actually create a situation where we can hold the dualities in our mind without getting swayed, without getting, sort of polarized by that. We need to actually have balance in our life. And if we can start holding that balance in our hearts and in our minds with our emotions and with our thoughts, that is the real where the real reset will come in this world. So transition to full quantum computing is predicted in the next 10 years. And they say that it's going to start with blockchain, where the quantum computers can use blockchain and then ultimately subsume blockchain into a much greater system. But I think blockchain is going to play a part definitely in a quantum-like world. I found this. I did quite a bit of searching about quantum, the quantum financial system on just on Google, and there's quite a lot of things that came up about it. And I found this site called qfinitylabs.com. You might want to check it out. And when you read that site, well, they are absolutely convinced that quantum computers are coming, and they're presenting it in a very positive light, which I thought was really good. And they're talking about it as a humanitarian good. So that's interesting. We'll have to see, because we know how the cabal love to invert everything. What we've got to realize actually is everything is inverted right now. Everything is upside down and inside out. So we need to actually start. We need to start getting the truth of what's actually going on. Then when we really understand the real problem, then we can come up with real solutions. Unfortunately, too many people are thinking that the good is bad and bad is good, and we need to start reversing that into, there's only truth, and there's either truth or there's untruth. There's either false or there's either true or false, and there's grey area in between, which doesn't make us right or wrong. It's just a grey area that we also have to understand. It's just it's degrees of truth, and as they say in Hermetic laws, all truths are but half truths. When you're working in this world on what's happening in the world, it's all subjective. It's not objective truth, which is what we really need. We're looking at abstract truths or subjectivity, and so it comes down to people's personal perception and perspective as to what's truth, and then we fight over it like cats and dogs. Whereas this is creating the division. Meanwhile, the central bankers are running off with the loot while we're busy fighting amongst ourselves. And so this is how they get to control us. So really, it's our responsibility to stop doing that. Otherwise, this will just keep going on and on and on. But this leads to my next point: is that the ultimate quantum computing network is a large group of awakened people, all connected by a common cause for good. That is literally, that to me is the ultimate it's like a biological computing network, because we understand how thoughts work in a field of energy, and how energy, remember, everything's connected and everything is energy, and our thoughts are simply energy, and they're coming from the field, and we're uploading them to the field, and we're downloading them from the field. So what we've got to do is we just got to, as we awaken to this kind of truth, then we can start getting about creating real solutions. And so we're on a tipping point of a major reset in whole of humanity. This is like, cannot underestimate how big this humanitarian reset is going to be. Forget about the WEF's Great Reset. There's nothing great about it, as most of us know. But there is a reset coming, and I see it as us awakened people, or awakening to the truth. Is we're the ones who are going to help to reset, because with consciousness, you creating then a world that is conscious, that is more in line with natural laws and the reality of nature. That's really what the ultimate reset we need is, to harmonize with nature and harmonize with reality, rather than where we're heading now, which is down into the black hole. So belief or attachment to a dysfunctional system is a type of mental neurosis. And many, many people are suffering from this right now. And the beliefs that the government's going to help them and save them, or beliefs that, whatever, whatever you like, you could just make up so many things about what's happening in the world. And so many people believe that what they've been subjected to is for their own good, and for the humanity's good, when I would say that's definitely not the case. But attacking the system, or living in financial denial, is not the way out. It is absolutely, like I've said before, you try to attack the system, you're on their turf, you're in their jurisdiction, you'll get taken out every time. So what we've got to do is, that's what I believe the ISO standard and some of these new emerging technologies can do, is they are working inside the system, and the best way to bring a system down and take it over is from the inside. It's never from the outside. And to live in financial denial that, that this is happening, to bury your head in the sand, or say, oh, I don't need money, I'll just live off, my garden plot. Well, if you can, good on you. But unfortunately, I think we're going to need more than that. If we become financially dependent on the government, on a universal basic income, we are literally going to give all our sovereign rights away in that. So we need to become independent and then ultimately interdependent. So, as I said before, the world is inverted. Everything that is true has been hidden, and everything false has been presented as the sole truth or idolized. This is about to reverse to the right way up, the way I see it. So when you look at our Hollywood, look at how that's idolized. Look at how our governments are being run. Look at the medical establishment right now. Look at what's happening in every sector of our life, and what is true has been hidden. Natural therapies. They're trying to outlaw natural therapies. They've even passed a law in Victoria, Australia, where it's illegal to grow your own food. So if people think that they can just go about their business and hide under a rock and it's not going to affect them, I think they're very sorely misguided. We need to at least acknowledge what's happening all around us in our world, and this is where the rubber hits the road. This is our financial life, our physical, material life is our link to the earth. It's our groundedness. It's our relationships. It's our way that we transact and do business, and it needs to be done in a free and open and fair way. So the education system has a lot to answer for. It really does. Due to this conditioning over many centuries, I mean, this is over many, many centuries, we have been subjected to a type of slavery called a job with taxation, and therefore a poverty or greed mindset then ensues out of that, and it's passed from generation to generation. So what I mean by that is if you're in a job and you're living on the breadline, you're either going to be subjected to poverty and think that's your lot, or you're going to have this sort of greedy mindset. You're going to want to overextend yourself, or you're going to react in such a way that's only going to send you back into where you started. So poverty consciousness is no better than a greedy mindset. We kind of need to realize abundance and prosperity is freedom. It's freedom, and it's freedom on certainly on a physical level, and then from there we can then explore the spiritual, mental, and emotional freedoms that make up the whole holistic life. So, and then this, what happens is we're born into a world like this, so it's passed from generation to generation. And now we're at the point now where the whole thing is going to collapse because it cannot be sustained anymore, because there's so many people on the planet who are starting to know the truth, and there's so many problems appearing in the world that it's blatantly obvious to anyone. And so, people are calling for change, and rightfully so. So, financial freedom with consciousness, in my opinion, is critical at this time, as we can then be examples for our community to create what I call the quantum freedom circle, where people realize we know we don't know, and then ultimately we know that we know. And therefore, we understand abundance is a birthright and meant for everyone. But because we don't know that we don't know, we're like mice on a mouse wheel running around, because consciousness cannot create beyond what you're conscious of. It's a basic natural law that no one can create anything beyond their station, beyond that boundary of what they think they know or what they don't know. So, yeah, we have to start waking people up to the fact that there's a lot more in this world that we don't know. And if we think we know everything, then we're really back to square one, because knowing everything is really just another form of kind of ego, pretty much. And none of us know everything. And but if we know that we don't know, then we will be impelled to explore and question what can we know. And questioning will help lead us towards the knowledge that we seek. Yeah, so that's basically it for this presentation. Thought I would leave another 15 minutes for some Q&A, because I think this is a topic that whoops, this is a topic that a lot of people are interested in, and you might have a lot more questions. Um, how do I stop the share, Gerald? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so you there, Gerald?
Yep. Um, yeah. Kim is asking, she joined late and she's asking what is Nesara Gesara?
Um, the National Economic Stability and Reform Act, which is basically, I would have thought that you knew about Nasara Jasara, Kim. It's um, it's basically, well, depending on who you speak to, that it's a new kind of peoples based reset that's coming, where all currencies will be valued the same and on a par. Debt will be eliminated. Gold backed currencies, silver backed currencies are coming in, and um, new technologies will be released to the people. A whole bunch of stuff, all kind of so beneficial technologies that can be released to the world,
Mm,
and elimination of central control, pretty
yeah,
much.
that makes sense. Well, if you look back before the 20th century, actually there was only one currency. I mean, there were national coins and national dollars and things like that, but they were actually all interchangeable. And in fact, in a lot of countries, people used to use foreign currencies because they were directly interchangeable for trade. And what made them directly interchangeable is that they were all gold backed. So actually, uh, before the 20th century, all current the world currency was gold, and then you had individual national coins or whatever, but they were just representations of gold backing. So perhaps this is what this global currency project is trying to do. I'm not sure.
Maybe, yeah. I think gold will be quite prominent. Gold
Hmm.
and silver, I think, will become quite prominent in whatever new currencies we get. They've got a lot of gold. I mean, there's a lot more gold in the world than when you believe. There's a huge amount of gold in the Philippines stashed in caves. There's a huge amount of gold that they apparently took out of the Vatican, something like 10 kilometers of it or some crazy amount. So, yeah, a lot of that falls into the conspiracy theory area. But if you subscribe to a lot of these, channels that I do watch because you get good stuff get nuggets of good information out of them. But I think a lot of it is just pure conjecture. But we definitely know the bigger things that are going on are not. We know that there is an agenda happening in the world. That is not a conspiracy. And we know that we're a target. I absolutely know that. In some way, we're a target. Either our health, our wealth, our mindset, that there is something happening that is not as nefarious in this planet. And if we I heard this analogy the other day. A lot of people said, "Oh, well, why should we bother with, why look at all that shit in the world? We could just be spiritual and we can create our spiritual life. We don't need to look at all that nefarious stuff because that's what's going to bring more of it in our world." And this guy went on to say, "Well, how do we actually heal personally if we've had trauma in our life, and a lot of us are suffering from some kind of trauma, right? We don't just bury it under layers and layers of more stuff and hope that our life is going to improve without addressing it. We've got to actually acknowledge it, talk about it, bring it to light. You've got to actually go into the dark spaces and shine light on it. And so when I'm looking at the world that's happening out there, this is how I see it. If all of the world are basically, a lot of the humanity are in some kind of trauma, and I'd say that's escalated a lot in the last 2.5 years. Well, then we have to acknowledge the darkness in the world. We have to actually look at it and face it. And that's what Carl Jung said, that the shadow in the world will not disappear until you start shining light on things. That's what he was trying to say. And so, just as we've got to shine light on our own needs and our own hurts and pains, and we go to counselors, we go to therapists, we talk about it, we do all this kind of stuff on ourselves. Well, isn't it about time that we came together as a collective and we looked at all the hurts and pains that are being caused in the world right now? What we've got to ask ourselves: why is there such a large poverty gap? Why are so many people dying of such easily curable diseases? Why are they doing a million things, from this, from the chemtrails to the water fluoridation to the food GMOs? It go on and on and on. But if we don't do anything about it and uncover, turn those stones over and look at it, it's going to keep going on. It's going to keep happening. That's what I think, anyway. But we don't need to fixate on it. I mean, I'm not a negative person. I'll look at negativity with a positive mindset, and that's what I think we need to do. We need to look at the shit in the world, and we need to find a way of transmuting it into positive by understanding, the fundamentals of why we're here and who we are, and why has this happened in the first place, so that it doesn't happen again. I know I'm raving a bit, but this is something that I've spent 30 years looking at. So it's quite, and I've gone through a lot of evolutions in that. I was very much hooked into the rabbit hole type conspiracy stuff for many years, but I realized it wasn't doing me any good to constantly just dwell in there. So I had to find ways to put my efforts into something that was going to actually be a solution, because I'd seen well enough to go, oh my God, this world is nothing like what we think it is. And that's what I did with my businesses. I created businesses that helped with healing and with bringing good nutrition. And now with DeFi Freedom, we can do something that actually try to make positivity out of the blockchain and create, promote abundance and prosperity. That's really what, um, where we're at now. Yeah, just reading some of these comments. Yeah, yeah, Wayne. Yep, they're trying to kill plants, and yes, Kim. I believe I've heard it just the other day from one of the WEF guys. He said he was bragging. I think it was either 600,000 or 800,000 people have already had the chip. Started off with a trial of about 5,000 people, and it's expanded and expanded from there. Um, Shiba,
Shiba
sorry,
Shiba Inu.
Carol. Oh, Shiba Inu. I don't like Shiba Inu. I'm not a big subscriber of the meme coins because they don't really do anything. It's like buying something just as like for what to hold a token because everyone else is. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of meme coins, and that's me. So I don't know anything about Shiba, and it's bound to dump. The tokens that are going to go are the ones that actually get used and actually have a fundamental um, use case for the new system. Yep, I think. Well, okay. Yep. Um, Try and talk them out of it. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people do what they got to do, and they've got to learn. It might go well. Who knows? It might go well. Dogecoin surprised a lot of people. It didn't have any use case either. But it's unless it's given a use case, I just don't see them having any longevity. Because why would people want to buy it? As soon as the regulations come out and people see where the real use case tokens are and have clarity, that's where the money's going to go, rightly or wrongly, whether it's you know cabal interest or not. At least we can get a piece of the action because we've got to be a little bit selfish, if you like. Well, not selfish, but we've got to be a little bit, um, you know, self-protecting. You know, and to me, if a token is just, even if it's got all great prospects in that and it does nothing, well, there's no real point in having it. We need to have a token that can at least give us price appreciation so that then we can do something with it and send it into other areas that are more maybe in keeping with our value set. But we have yet to see just how we've got to see how the actual system that's coming, how it's actually going to look. Until we see it, until we understand what we're up against, we can't really judge any one project whether it's inherently good or bad until we actually see it in action. The 10 years, no, the 10 years I'm talking about was quantum computers. I don't think blockchain and the crypto is going to take us 10 years. I think in 2 years, I reckon about 2 to 3 years, we will see we will start seeing the manifestation of potential life-changing gains and abundance. I think we've still got another hard year ahead of us. But when quantum computers come in, then the whole ballpark will change again. And yeah, that's too far ahead to know what's going to happen then. But yeah, by the end of this year, we'll start seeing the emergence of where we're heading because it depends on who's going to win this war at the top. Can I talk about the possibility of cyber attacks? I'll just turn the light on. It's just getting a bit dark in here. Hang on a sec. Yeah, there's definitely, I think cyber attacks are going to come. We've kind of seen it in a way with what happened to the Terra Luna token. That was basically attacked. Wasn't straight out cyber attack, but this is what they're going to do. They're going to pick on certain platforms. Maybe the cyber attacks, I think, generally will be aimed at the existing system by and large, because that's their problem reaction solution. I think, oh well, Russia have cyber attacked our system, so now we have to bring in the CBDC. Say that's an example. I'm not saying that's exactly what will happen, but they're liable to attack maybe some crypto exchanges, but they cannot cyber attack your crypto that's held in your own wallet, your own self custody wallet. They cannot cyber attack that. So as long as you're following the principles of putting it in a wallet that's safe, in your own custody with your own private key, then you're good. But if you're holding it on an exchange, that's not good. They will likely attack an exchange. They're going to do more attacks on possibly crypto exchanges, and then they're going to go, well, that's going to give them an excuse for regulation and possibly a digital currency as well that they want to force on us. But there will be a stack of cryptos. There will be like a stack, and they may have a CBDC. But we're going to have I believe, decentralized finance tokens will be in there as well, and digital assets or security tokens will also be in there. Yeah. So we're going to see the system's going to split into two, I believe, and there will be a central bank-driven economy, and there will be a decentralized type economy, and we're already seeing it emerge. And those projects that have real communication, but real community and a lot of participation, they're not going to be able to take out those projects if they're when they're on the blockchain. They cannot attack the blockchain either. The blockchain is immutable to cyber attacks. Where they can cyber attack is when you have a web address, a traditional web address, and that's what exchanges have, and that's by and large how the existing internet. They might even attack the actual internet itself, and the internet might go down. But if it does, I believe it'll come back up reasonably quickly. Yeah, so if anyone else has any questions, otherwise I will say goodbye for this time.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Tony. And have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah. Coming as usual.